I want to go right now to Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, the presidential candidate. Governor, we had agreed to this interview and very happy to have you, sir, under very different circumstances. What do you make of this?
Well, Neil, down here in Florida, I think there's a couple things. One, when we take on issues, we don't do any political theater. If we tell you we're going to do something, we just go and we do it. And it's really all about that. And then the other thing is at the end of the day, it's all about the results that you are able to produce. And so we've been able to produce results by cutting taxes, by running surpluses, by paying down 25% of our debt. We're one of the few states where incomes are increasing. California, New York, they're decreasing. So that's really what it's about. And what I see up there is I see just a lack of leadership. I see a Republican majority that hasn't delivered what it promised to deliver, but I also see a lot of political theater and performative stuff where people are fundraising or whatnot, a lot of chaos. And you're just not going to be successful if everything is constantly in a state of chaos. I mean, there needs to be leadership. There needs to be a common agenda. And you got to be able to marshal people to be able to get that done. And so there's a lot of frustration when I'm in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, a lot of frustration with the state of the country. And then really the lack of urgency that I think a lot of people in Washington have had for quite some time. The border's never been worse. Inflation and interest rates haven't been this bad in 40 years. We have crime infesting cities. I was just out in the West Coast, Neil, for this debate, talking to people in Southern California. I must have run into 6 or 7 people who had told me they've been mugged in the last year. When has that ever happened? And that's normal in a lot of American cities. And, of course, we have a bureaucracy that is out of control, that's been weaponized against the American people. So we want to see leadership. And I can tell you, as president, when I get in there, we'll provide the leadership. We're not going to provide chaos and drama. We're just going to provide an agenda that we can get done and turn the country around. You
said that you would provide the leadership. Are you saying in the House Kevin McCarthy did not, and this is his comeuppance?
Well, look, I was actually, Chad mentioned back in the day, I was one of the guys that opposed McCarthy before it was cool. Now you're in a situation where they haven't produced results, and that's just the reality. At the same time, though, I look at guys like Chip Roy, Tom Massey, Jim Jordan, and they're basically saying that there's not a plan to go forward with whatever Matt Gaetz is doing. And so I'm somebody, if I go down a road, I will deliver results for it. I'm not just going to do it and flail around. It's not going to just be about fundraising. I would have a plan in place to be able to deliver what I promised to deliver. I'm not sure that there's a plan in place on this. I guess we'll see as this vote unfolds.
Now, you mentioned Matt Gaetz, your fellow Floridian. Of course, he was the one who initiated this process. Looks like he might succeed at kicking the speaker out. What do you think of him in this move?
Well, look, when I see the Republican congressman pointing out that there's a lot of fundraising going on around that, that makes me uncomfortable. I think when you're doing things, you need to be doing it because it's the right thing to do. It shouldn't be done with an eye towards trying to generate lists or trying to generate fundraising. And so that is not the way I would operate. When we operate, we do what we think is right and let the chips fall where they may. Sometimes when you do the right thing, you do get more support, and that's just the nature of it. But that shouldn't be what's driving any of this, and I'd hope that that's not the case.
The reason why I mention it, Governor, is that much has been said that Republicans are risking grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory here. They had control, albeit tentative and tenuous control of the House, and they're botching it right now. And a lot of people are looking at Mr. Gaetz as the reason for that. He has already kind of laid out the possibility that after your Florida term is up, and wherever you go after this, sir, that he wants to run for governor. What do you think of that?
Well, look, leadership starts at the top, and so you have different members that go, but I think the leader has got to get people in line and try to deliver the victories. But I look at an issue like the border and immigration, and I think that the failure theater that we've seen out of Republicans is, oh well, we only have the House. How are we going to be able to do anything? But you look, we have the mayor of New York City saying that the city is going to be destroyed because of Biden's open border. You have the governor of New York now acknowledging that this doesn't work. The governor of Illinois is writing letters So I do think if leadership is provided, you can make headway when it comes to this border, because you have very liberal Democrat politicians that are acknowledging that this can't continue. So what I want to see is I want to see Republicans lead that effort in Washington to be able to give the American people relief from the border situation that is overwhelming not just border cities, it's overwhelming cities all throughout the country. A country that can't even control its own border, that's a country that's in decline. And we have to reestablish our sovereignty if we want to reverse this country's decline. I do think that there should be a pathway to be able to get real serious about the border. And I think you'd have Democrat support because their constituents are upset. The people in Manhattan that are protesting AOC and these people over the border, those are not right-wingers, Neil. Those are people that are fed up with seeing what's all around them because of Biden's broken policy.
You know, Governor, I'd be remiss on the same day as, you know, the ongoing civil hearing on Donald Trump and his business transactions and whether he inflated his real estate and other properties. The judge in that case, Arthur Engoron, had posted a gag order on him because the former president was posting online what the judge deemed to be dangerous comments about the judge's clerk, his staff, what have you. What did you think of that? What do you think of that?
So I have not seen that. I knew that there was something going on. What I will say is when you have the Attorney General of New York running for office saying she is going to, quote, get Trump, that is not the way justice is supposed to work. You don't go after somebody and then just scrutinize them and try to come up with something. And so what I would say is, are there other examples in New York of people being treated this way while they're going around looking over every business transaction? I think probably not. And so that is, I think, one of the problems with our Justice Department. The left has taken it and they've weaponized it against people they disagree with. The question for Republican voters, and I think most of us are very sensitive to that issue and we want to see change, who's best to actually deal with it? I'm the only guy running that's actually done anything about it. We've had two prosecutors funded by George Soros in Florida that weren't following the law. I removed them from their posts. When I become president, DOJ, FBI, you're going to see major overhauls. We'll have a new FBI director on day one, and we'll ensure that if people are abusing their power, they are fired from the FBI. I don't want to see parents being scrutinized going to school board meetings. I don't want to see some of the things that we've seen happen over these last many years. And so this trial with the civil, with this partisan attorney general, I do think shows a larger issue that we as Republicans got to tackle. I'll be the guy that will be able to get that done.
Still, the former president has used this civil trial to his advantage. Every day he's come out and spoken a number of times, including today, at least 3 times, to protest the New York State Attorney General, what have you, and a system that he has called a scam and a swamp and a sham, I should say. He has also said right now that this environment is what is bad in America, and that given his lead in the polls, there's really no reason to further this debate. Republicans have rallied around him. The polls reflect it. He's gone on to say that we might as well cancel the third debate scheduled, I believe, in Miami for November 8th. What do you think of that? That he is now saying, look at my support, look at my poll numbers, look at the governors. It's not worth it. It's over.
Well, gee, Neil, I mean, I could say, Florida State, they're undefeated right now. Why even have the rest of the season? Why even do the college football playoffs? I mean, maybe we should just crown them national champion. That's not the way it works. You've got to earn this. And yes, Donald Trump's gotten a lot of media attention, gets way more than anybody else. I do think there's been sympathy, but I also think as we get closer, voters in Iowa, New Hampshire are going to decide, okay, who do we need to nominate to, one, beat the Democrats at the ballot box, but more importantly, actually deliver victories once you're in office. And I'm the guy that's shown I could do that in Florida. Everything we promised, we delivered. I saw him in Iowa on Sunday, and he was talking about his promise to have Mexico pay for the border wall, probably one of the most famous promises in political history, certainly the centerpiece of his 2016 campaign. And what he said was really startling. He said, people, say Mexico should have paid for the wall, but he said there was no way he could have ever made Mexico pay, and basically admitting that the whole promise was phony from the beginning. So one, I think that that's really bad. I think this is a different guy in 23 than he was in 2016. But the problem, even bigger, you actually could have made Mexico pay. No, they're not just going to cut you a check. You impose fees on remittances from people sending money back to Mexico. That's actually something that his staff said he was interested in doing, and he didn't do it. So that's why he needs to go to these debates. You can't beat the Democrats by running Biden's basement strategy. You owe it to the voters to show up, and you need to defend your record, and you need to show them how you're going to be the guy to get the job done.
I know what you're saying. So polls are polls, and then it doesn't count until people actually vote. I get that. But many people have given up on you, and I'm wondering if you're concerned about that. They've wrapped it up
and tied it in a bow.
So how do you respond to that and this push now, if Donald Trump were to succeed and have that third debate canceled or push it in that direction, then what?
So he is currently spending money against me in Iowa. He is campaigning in Iowa, and that's an indication. You can tell campaigns by what they do. So, yes, people are going to try to create whatever narratives they want, but he's there spending money, attacking me, and he spent over $25 million in this campaign attacking me, by the way. That shows you that they do view me as the threat. So you got to earn this. I'm going to earn it. I've done 58 of the 99 counties in Iowa. We're going to do all 99. I challenge Donald Trump to match me, show up in all these communities and earn their vote. And that's what we're going to do. And it's a state-by-state process. Anyone can take a national poll, but ultimately you got to go earn the votes there locally. And they're showing you that they think it's a race because they wouldn't be behaving in the way that they're doing if they didn't think it was a race. And yes, we should have that debate. We should have more debates. Donald Trump should show up at the debates. And I do think that they should narrow the debates with the candidates that have met the thresholds of really having a chance to compete in these early states. I'm clearly one of those. I don't know that there's that many more. That would, I think, draw more interest from people. And I think it would probably put more pressure on Donald Trump to actually show up and debate.
Last question, Governor. You've been very patient for all this breaking news as well. I appreciate that, sir. But it appears to be bedlam to many people looking at the plight of Republicans, certainly in the House, and whether the Speaker could be kicked out virtually his own party. Even though he has the overwhelming support of moderates and most of the caucus, it's about 5 to 10 individuals, many say up to 21 of them, who just are not in sync with him. If he keeps his majority and he stays on as Speaker, and you become President of the United States, all tall tasks, I grant you, could you work with him?
I can work with anyone, Kev, because it's not about personalities. It's about doing what the people want. I mean, the reason why President Reagan was so successful was because he appealed to the people, and then they pressured their representatives to support his agenda. That's why we've been so successful in Florida.
He had an overwhelming mandate, right? He had a landslide mandate after 1980.
But he had a Democrat.
Right?
But he had a Democrat House after 1980, and he was able to enact his whole agenda with the Democrat House because a lot of those people were doing that. So I think the voters are going to expect, certainly all Republicans, to support our agenda. And I don't think we're going to have any problems. And of all the governors in the country, I think I've probably worked better with my legislature down in Florida. We've had a run of success that is second to none. I understand they get elected on certain priorities. I want to help them with their priorities, and I want them to help me. And so you work together to be able to advance a common agenda. We've shown that it can be done here. Look, Washington is a swamp. It's definitely more difficult. There's no question about it. But it's a town in need of leadership. And I think only the president can provide that leadership. And we really haven't had a president that's had big success with Congress since President Reagan, when he came in. We need to do it now, because if we don't get this done, we only have a short amount of time, short amount of window to be able to turn the country around. You got to go in there January 20th, 2025. You got to be ready to go on day one. You got to have your appointments ready, executive orders ready. You got to have the legislation lined up with the relevant congressmen and senators. and then you don't have a minute to waste, and you need 100, 150 days where you're knocking out the country's problems. I'll be ready on day one. I'll be an energetic executive, and we will be on offense for a change.
So when you talk about the fact that you are the one who's electable, that you could win a general election, and lo and behold, a poll comes out. It might be an outlier poll, Governor, from ABC and Washington Post, that shows Donald Trump beating Joe Biden by 10 points. So therein lies, that argument doesn't hold water, right? Donald Trump could win big.
So Neil, it's really now the polls said we were going to have a red wave. That didn't happen. You look at every special election since Biden's been elected. He's very unpopular. Democrats are winning most of these special elections where they shouldn't do. So election results over multiple cycles is a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen going forward. If voters have consistently rejected voting for Donald Trump, the idea they're all of a sudden going to start coming, that's just not a thing you want to hang your hat on. Whereas in Florida, we have actual election results where we won by 20 points, 1.5 million vote margin. It was the largest Republican victory for a governor candidate in the history of the state. There were polls that showed me tied, winning by 1, winning by 2. Even some had me losing. Some had me winning significantly, but not that significant. And yet we were able to do it. And we knew we were going to do it because we know how to evaluate these things. I guarantee you this, Neil, the minute if Donald Trump were to become the nominee, the Washington Post ain't putting out polls showing him up 10. They're going to put out polls showing him down. They're going to use the polls to try to suppress enthusiasm. They have an agenda with these national polls. They've used it against Republicans for years. I think it's pretty clear two things. The corporate press wants Republicans to nominate Trump because I think they think that it'll be easier for the Democrats to win. And they do want them to replace Biden. So Republican voters got to be prepared. It may be somebody like a Gavin Newsom, who I'm going to be debating on Fox on November 30th. They may try to put in a Newsom or a Harris or somebody. It may not even be Biden. So we want to make sure we have a candidate that's going to be able to handle any of those candidates that they throw at it. But I could say we won Florida. Donald Trump won Florida by 3. I won Florida by 20. I think that's indication that we could get the job done nationally.
All right. It's still early, as you said. And having recognized that, I just want to remind you, since my son goes to Clemson, that Florida State thing, I wouldn't make too much of that, Governor. So we'll leave it at that.
Definitely won't in South Carolina. You won't hear a peep out of me, Neil, as soon as I get to South Carolina. Right. Don't worry about that.
All right. Ouch. Governor DeSantis, very good seeing you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.